Welcome, Deacon Joseph.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you. Now, you're one of our transitional deacons here at St. Faustina Catholic Church, and you've been with us for how long now?
About 2, maybe 3 months.
2-3 months, and it's a quick stay here
at
St. Faustina. Now, normally I understand that a transitional deacon will be with a parish for an entire year.
That's right.
Every other weekend. So what happened here? If you could explain, please.
Yeah, I think I like to say I'm kind of crashing a party here. Deacon Houston Acoma is y'all's real transitional deacon assigned to this parish.
Don't say real.
Yeah. It's true. He's the assigned transitional deacon here. And he'll be coming every other weekend, or that was the plan. We'll see what happens with coronavirus. And then, but for me, the reason why I have a little bit of a different stay with you all is because in the summers, I study in Rome at the North American College. And so I have a little unique opportunity to do my theological training over there.
Okay.
And so throughout the year, I'm actually in Rome, so there's no way I could come to a parish every other weekend in Houston.
Okay, so that was the plan ever since, that you'd only be here for a few months.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
This summer, I was supposed to go to Mexico, but that didn't work out because of
all that's been happening.
Exactly.
Okay, and then how did you end up in Rome?
Yeah, great question. Question I ask myself often. I would say, so after I graduated from the University of Dallas, Holy Trinity Seminary is where I went for my philosophy degree, the first stage. The Cardinal DiNardo asked me to go to Rome to do my theology there.
Okay.
And so he was the one that asked me to go over there. And so I've been there now 3 years and doing my theology there. Most guys do study here in Houston, but for me, he wanted me to go over to Rome and experience the Universal Church in Rome. And so
why do you think you were chosen to go to Rome?
A great question. Again, another question I ask myself every day. What I tell people is that it's not so much that it's something I did or something extra special about me. I think a lot of people have the capacity to go over Rome. It's just depends on the timing, and Cardinal DiNardo likes to send some guys over there to get an extra degree so that you can possibly teach at the seminary here in Houston.
Okay.
Teach a little bit upper level courses, and so it was just the right timing where he needed someone to go over there. I fit the bill, and he felt like it could be a good opportunity for me. So it's a little bit discerning who the guy is, what Rome would be, what that experience would be like, and it just worked out. So
did you speak Italian before?
No, not at all. No,
that's not a factor, the language.
No. I mean, I spoke a lot of Spanish before, and so they knew I had at least a capacity to learn a language. But no, you don't know any Italian going over there, and so the first 2 months when you get over there is all Italian immersion. The first month I was over there, and I went to Siena, and I went to stay with a nonna, is what they call them, a grandma. And so I lived with an Italian nonna, and she cooked me all my meals, and she no English, so she was just speaking Italian during the day. In the first 4 hours, I was Italian classes, and then 2 hours in the afternoon, I had just one-on-one tutoring with a tutor. Wow. So 6 hours of formal training in Italian. All my meals with the nonna were in Italian, of course, and then so just a full-on immersion for a whole month of just living.
Wow, that's the way to learn, though. To get immersed.
Exactly, full immersion. The next month, I was back in Rome at our college, the North American College, and we had 4 hours of class every morning, and just continued to learn. And then they threw me into Italian classes, master's level, and you just gotta sink or swim.
Wow,
it's not that bad, but it is kind of crazy.
It's a big leap from rudimentary language to classroom language.
Yeah, it is.
That's a huge leap, because I did learn later in life, when I was a little older, in my late teens, I learned to speak another language, and it's very difficult going from hi, hello to classroom academic language.
It is. Yeah, I remember when I was in Siena, towards the end of my month in Siena. So we were about a month out, 1 month away from starting our classes in Italian. And I turned to one of these guys I just met from St. Louis, And I said, Patrick, we're learning right now how to say, I like ice cream. I like the color red. And in a month, we're going to be learning about the hypostatic union, these high Christology and this, like, how is this ever going to work? And
I would have thought that they would choose somebody who knew a little Italian.
I think that if someone knows Italian, that certainly they would have.
Okay.
I think just at the time, our diocese just didn't have anybody that knew Italian.
Okay.
And so at the timing, they were just like, okay, we'll send you over. But most of us that go over there, that we don't know any Italian, and it's just you just have to try to pick up the language as fast as you can and do whatever you can to.
So are you saying that if anybody's in the seminary right now or thinking about going to the seminary, if you want to get that shot to go to Rome, then learn some Italian so you can tell the cardinal when you're in the seminary, hey, I know Italian.
Yeah.
Send me over to the Vatican.
Yeah. I would tell anybody who's in the seminary or thinking about the seminary, do not raise your hand for anything, because if you raise your hand, you're not going to get it. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of a joke. It's a joke. But no, I think, why not learn Italian? But it is, there's really, it's hard to know the rhyme or reason for why that happens. It's all about timing, all about a lot of different things.
So how long before you actually left for Rome did you find out? How much lead time did you have from when they told you, okay, you're going to Rome till you actually leave? Is it like a month? Did they just tell you, okay, next week you're going? Or
no, we're fortunate here. The Cardinal Donato gave me a lot of time. So he told me in December, and then that following July I left. So I had about 6 or 7 months to get ready and tell my family and break the news to my parents. It's funny. I like to tell the story when I told my parents, because I got called by, at the time it was Father TJ who took over for Father Dat as the vocation director. And he called me and asked me, the Cardinal would like you to go to Rome. Would you be okay with it? And I said, let me think. Yeah, I'll be okay with it. And then and so I went and so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to Rome. I was like, I better tell my parents.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of was very somber on the phone. I was like, Mom, Dad, I want to let you know, for the next 5 years, I'm going to go be studying in Rome and leave, thinking that they'd probably be a little upset that their son, they're going to see me a lot. I'm going to be gone for 9 months or 2 years at a time. And then there was just an eruption of excitement, like, yeah. I was like, oh, what? Why are you so excited? I mean, if you wanted to get rid of me for 5 years, there's a lot of other ways you could have done than try to get me to go to Rome. But no, they were just happy and for me and excited. And so.
Were you expecting them to like, oh, my baby boy,
exactly,
or something like that?
Yeah, I was expecting my mom to be all upset that she was going to lose me for a long time. I won't be at home for Christmas for 5 years. Things like that. So it was just. There's little things that means, but no, they were just excited for the opportunity.
So how many from Galveston, Houston are going with you? Is it just you, or is there a group of a handful of people?
No, right now it's just me over there. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So when you're there, you meet people from all over the world.
I do, yeah. So the way it kind of works is we have a seminary, the North American College. So that college is kind of like a dormitory. It's just for Americans.
Okay.
We also give the Australians some place too, because they don't have another college. So we have the Australians and us. We live together. And so I meet people from all over the United States. We all live together. Mm-hmm. And then when I go to the university, the Gregorian University, where I just graduated from, that has students from all over the world, Africa, Spain, France, all these different places. And the common language is Italian. So you learn in Italian, speak to each other in Italian.
So you really have to learn. It forces everybody to learn Italian.
Exactly. So it forces everyone to learn Italian. And but it's kind of fun. You're speaking to a guy from Germany, and he only knows German and Italian, and you only know English and Italian. So you're both speaking in your second language to each other, and so it's a unique experience that you get to have. So it's pretty fun.
So let's go back to your family. Are you a cradle Catholic?
I am, yeah. So I was born and raised Catholic in Lake Jackson, Texas. St. Michael's is my home parish, so not too far from St. Faustina. And my parents both Catholic. My dad was a convert when I was about 10 years old. He was a Lutheran, grew up Lutheran, and just studied a lot of the Catholic Church, and just realized that he believed what we believe in the Catholic Church, and so he converted. And My parents very involved. My parents for 10, 12 years ran the confirmation program at the church. And my mom for 3 years was the principal of the local Catholic school.
Nice.
Yeah. My dad ended up after, like right when I was entering seminary, he went and got a master's in theology.
Wow.
And then became a chaplain at the local hospital. So, I was raised by some pretty awesome faithful
Your mom
Catholics.
is a cradle Catholic?
Yeah.
Okay, so your dad was like, okay, what was it like early on before your dad converted?
Yeah, it's a good question. My dad, he always said that he knew it was best for the family to go to one church.
Okay.
And he didn't have too much problems with the Catholic Church. And he knew it would be a lot easier for him to attend the Catholic Church than it would be for my mom to attend a Protestant church. And so he just was like, okay, we'll go to the Catholic Church. And so I always considered myself Catholic. I always considered our family Catholic. I knew my dad wasn't, but they were very intentional about we're being raised Catholic and we believe what the church believes. And so, so it actually wasn't that big of a shock when he converted.
Okay.
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting
thing. He wasn't dragged into it.
No. Yeah, like he had been married at that point for about 15 years without being Catholic. So it was.
So he went through the whole RCIA process, or was there not one at that time?
It wasn't really. He actually didn't because he was so knowledgeable and he knew the pastor of the parish so well.
Okay.
He was the pastor there was even letting him teach some classes, do some CCE
because he knew so much already.
He knew so much already, and he told my dad, he's like, John, you know more than probably the RCIA teachers, so why don't you all just
make it official?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Let's just make it happen. And so
why are we beating around the bush?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So he met with my dad a couple times, and then he got brought into the church.
Did he ever say anything like how when he first met your mom, how he had no idea that he was going to end up actually getting a master's in
Yeah, we haven't really had that discussion about how far his transition in life has gone. I mean, he's an interesting guy, but he's always been so involved in his faith and so committed. I think it probably would be a little bit of a shock to him at that time to think he would be Catholic. But he had gone to like a Protestant seminary and
he went as far as a seminary.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he did that. And even people when we were growing up, I remember I had friends asking him to start his own church and like,
oh really?
Yeah, so he's really involved in his faith, really involved in ministry and has always been. So it's not crazy. The more crazy thing was him becoming Catholic, but then him diving into the Catholicism is not as.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
I have 2 older brothers. Yeah, my oldest brother is a physical therapist, and he's in College Station. He went to Texas A&M, got his physical therapy degree after, then came back to College Station. He has 4 kids. I have a beautiful niece and 3 awesome nephews. And then my other brother is in Minnesota, actually. He works for Milwaukee Power Tools. He markets power tools for them and helps deal with their accounts and account manager for their different products. And so he's up there. He went to the school in Minnesota where my parents met. My mom's from Minnesota.
Okay.
And when my dad was getting a master's there, my mom was in undergrad. They met in Minnesota. My dad grew up in Fort Worth, moved up to Wisconsin. Played football there, and then after was coaching and getting a master's degree in Minnesota, and then met my mom.
And then they decided to move back to Texas.
So then my dad, he kept coaching, and he got a master's, then he got a PhD in like kind of a kinesiology, and then he was in health, and it was kind of a new thing that these big corporations were getting. Kind of health directors and teaching their employees how to live healthily and it would help with their insurance and the like. And so they actually brought my dad in who had worked at like a little bit of the Mayo Clinic and they brought my dad in. And so he moved down to Lake Jackson where Dow Chemical is and where they have a lot of their employees. And so that's what brought him to
Are they still
Texas.
there?
Yep. They're still living in Lake Jackson.
So that's grandma and grandpa's house.
Exactly.
That's
exactly. Yeah, for now. So we'll see.
So how often do you get to go back to Lake Jackson?
Yeah, definitely more when I'm home in the summers. I probably get back once every other week. On my day off, I often go see them. They might come up to Houston, or I might go down there and see them. But yeah, throughout the year, when I'm in Rome, it's obviously very rare. The first 2 years when you go over to Rome, you can't. They ask you not to go home. So for 2 full years, you never return.
Wow, why is that?
I think the idea is that they want you to get used to being away from home, because there's kind of like a roller coaster you go through when you go to Rome. You go and you're on this huge high.
Yeah.
Really excited. I can't believe I'm in Rome doing all these things, seeing all these people. I mean, just speaking Italian. It's great, great, great. And then you hit right about Thanksgiving starts to come, and then it starts settling. Okay, this is not home. I'm not going home anytime soon. Thanksgiving's coming. I'm in a foreign country for Thanksgiving. Christmas comes. And so by the time you get to your first summer, I say the honeymoon phase is worn off. You're not really you're kind of like, okay, I've seen a lot in Rome. I would love to be home.
Yeah.
And so staying that summer kind of gives you the opportunity to kind of work through, even when it's not that exciting to be in Rome.
Okay.
To
the day-to-day thing.
Exactly. And just learn how to be okay with living away from home. And so then once you've done 2 years, I guess they found that you kind of feel settled enough that where you can go home and you won't just stay. So they had some experience, I think, with guys who went home in that first summer and was like, okay, I did the Rome thing. I'm just going to ask to study.
I don't want any more. That's it. Yeah. Okay.
I'll just study here in the States. And so they're trying to avoid that. And they also wanted you to take advantage of the opportunity to just be abroad for a summer and do a mission trip or whatever. So,
okay. Yeah. So when you get back to Lake Jackson, do your parents really brag about you? Oh, this is our son. He's going to become a priest.
Yeah, I mean, my parents definitely are really proud and they're excited. But it's amazing growing up and being baptized at the parish down there. Everyone knows me, knows my parents, so they know everything. So it's pretty fun to go down there, and everyone's so excited.
Is the priest that baptized you, is he still alive?
He is, yeah. He just retired about 2 years ago. But yeah, he has a unique circumstance. He was in Lake Jackson for over 30 years at that parish. So he baptized me. He was there for my confirmation. He walked through my whole life. Most of my seminary time, he was still the pastor there. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool
to be a priest there and to see somebody go through that. Are you the only one that has become a priest or entered religious life? Are there others?
There's some others. We have, it's been a while. So I think the last priest that was ordained from our parish was 2001. So,
okay.
So it'll be 20 years before when I'm ordained a priest since the last one that had been ordained. We have another guy who, him and I kind of providentially entered at the same time, and neither of us knew about each other's discernment. He's a lot older. And he was with the diocese, but now he's studying to be a Carmelite. So he's in a monastery studying to be a Carmelite. So him and I are the 2 vocations we have right now.
Okay, so that's a very different path, huh?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So how do you decide on that? At what point do you decide?
Yeah, I mean the whole seminary process is a discernment. So at any stage, he was in for about 5, going on his 6th year, when he just felt like the Lord was really leading him into the spirituality of St. Teresa of Avila and St. John of the Cross. And he just felt a desire to be more contemplative in his life and spend more time in prayer.
Okay.
And he just felt in a prayer experience that the Lord maybe be calling him to go to the Carmelites. So basically right before he was ordained a deacon, so pretty close to where I am now, he said, I'm going to go and be a Carmelite. And so he discerned out of the diocesan priesthood and went and discerned with the Carmelites, and is still there, and is now Brother John Teresa of Jesus is his new name.
So how about you?
Yeah.
How did you decide, your path?
Great. Yeah. So I have an interesting story in the sense that when I was 5 years old, I was giving homilies and sermons in the shower to myself.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I would just be preaching and just felt like the walls, I guess, needed to hear something that I needed to say. And, my mom would knock on the door, like, when are you getting out of there? I was like, I'm wrapping it up, Mom. Don't worry. It's coming. I'll finish it up soon. And so I always had these sermons and these ideas of preaching to people. But I went to a Protestant school up until high school. and my dad was Protestant. So there was never a sense that like if I was going to preach or do that, I needed to be a priest. It was always just like maybe I could be a missionary, or that never really drew me to the idea of being a priest. But I did always love the idea of preaching. And when I was a freshman in high school, I kind of had the first experience of the call, you might say, to discern this more further. I went to a Steubenville conference on the Bayou in Louisiana. It's a high school retreat where a lot of them come gather for a weekend conference, a lot of good speakers. Father Mike Schmitz does a lot of them. And so I went there, and at the end, they do kind of what they call a vocations altar call. And they ask like anyone who's thinking about being a priest or open to the idea of being a priest, please come forward. We want to pray over you, give you a blessing. And when they said that, I had this just burning sensation on my heart and this feeling that I needed to go forward, this calling from the Holy Spirit to go forward. And I did, and just had a lot of peace with the idea of being a priest. And then a few months later, I didn't give it much thought after the conference, but a few months later, I went on a mission trip down to the Valley of Texas, where our parish, we put on a vacation Bible school for a parish that didn't have one yet. And we were kind of teaching them how to run a vacation Bible school. We also, in the afternoons, would work on homes. And so that whole week was just dedicated to working for the church, working for different things. And I remember thinking like, wow, this would be really cool. Like my whole life was dedicated to working for God. And like, that's what a priest does. That would be awesome. And so I remember I was talking to one of my friends, and I asked her, I was like, do you think I'd be a good priest? And she's like, no, I don't think so.
Why'd you say that?
Yeah, she's like, you'd be such a good dad. I think you should just be a dad. And so I was like, oh, okay, sounds good to me. And so I didn't think about it much more. And
do you think she probably liked you? And
I mean, maybe, thinking back to it, if like at the time, I probably should have asked her on a date at that moment. That would have been a good transition.
Because guys are dense. We don't get it sometimes.
Yeah, I know. She was trying to hit me with a 2x4, and I was like not getting the message.
Was she grabbing your arm at the time?
Yeah, saying, you'd be a great priest, like flipping her hair. You'd be a great dad, father of my children. I never really thought about it much. But I went back on the Steubenville conference before my senior year of high school, had that same experience of wanting to be a priest when they asked if you're considerate. And that's even a funny story too, because and it kind of highlights my own struggle with discernment, that I right before I went in to go to this like last Sunday conference, and everyone that's been on a Steubenville conference knows that they're going to do this, so I kind of knew that they might do this. But anyways, this girl came up to me and gave me this bracelet. And she's like, hey, I just want to give this to you. Like, good to see you. And kind of was talking to me. I was like, oh, this is random. And then I looked on the inside. It was like her number and said, call me. And I was like, oh, no. And I remember when I was walking up, when I was thinking about being a priest, I was like, she's probably like, what? I just gave that guy my number. He's going to be a priest. Can't believe it. So I was like, I hope she doesn't see me, like in case like it would work out. I could date her. I don't want her to think like I'm going to be a priest.
Do you think you crushed her? I pushed him into the priesthood.
Yeah. That's what I like to think. I doubt that was the case, but I like to think she was just really, really distraught about it. And so then I go into senior year thinking about probably going to Texas A&M or somewhere to be an engineer.
Okay.
And actually it's kind of interesting being able to speak in front of a microphone like this, because my biggest passion, and I got kind of talked out of it by senior year, was to be a sports announcer. I always wanted to be a sports announcer.
Really?
Even through 11th grade, I went to Texas A&M, looked at their communications department, and I remember just being like almost affirmed in it, because they were like, yeah, 80% are women. I was like, that's a great ratio for me. But it was, I wanted it. But then everyone just kind of talked me out of it, like, you'll never make it, you can't do it. So unfortunately I didn't, so I'm kind of living my dream right now. Thank you. Anyway, so
if you didn't get into the priesthood, you probably would have pursued that.
I hope I would have. I think my friends had kind of talked me out of it. Like, dude, you can't. Like, it's not a good job. Like, you never know if you can make it. But I think I would have been disappointed as an engineer, and I might have tried to pursue being a sports announcer, to be honest.
I could see you on on TV as a sports
Really?
announcer.
Yeah, appreciate that. That'd be a lot of fun. I used to watch sports all day, every day. My parents would tell you. So,
you're a big Houston sports fan?
Oh yeah, huge Rockets, Astros, Texans fan.
So you and Father Dad get a lot to talk about.
We do. We talk about it every day. We talk about it every day. When I was a kid, I would put every TV on in the house. We had like TVs in different rooms.
Okay.
And I would love when my parents leave because I could turn all the TVs on the game and then I could just pace so that my stress wouldn't be as strong during the game. I just pace throughout the house and just kind of talking about what we needed to do. And we got to do this. And so I knew like I was so committed to teams that I wanted to be like the voice of the Rockets. That was my goal. So I could be biased. I didn't have to worry about being non-biased. I could cheer for my team and also be an announcer. So, but anyways, back to the story that you asked me about. When I was a senior, I was kind of going through that and like discernment about where I should go to college, being an engineer, and kind of around December, January-ish, so right in the middle of the semesters, in between semesters, I was feeling a lot of unrest, a lot of just stress about two things. One, I wasn't really sure, like, why am I wanting to go to like A&M? Like, I didn't know if I was going to get accepted, and there was a lot of just questions around that. And then number two, as always with high schoolers, like there was this girl that I liked. She didn't like me. You know,
I was about to ask about girls.
Yeah. So I was in that friend zone hard, and it was just like couldn't get out. And so I was like, gosh, I just can't believe this. And so I had a really graced moment though, where I realized that I am a committed Catholic. People see me as a Christian. And if that's the case, that like Jesus has to be my best friend. And it really was that simple for me. It was just, Jesus has to be my best friend, and the best friend I have in high school, I talk to him every day, and I don't talk to Jesus every day. And so I decided to go to the Adoration Chapel every day for 5 to 20 minutes. And in that, I kind of was able to pour out my heart to Jesus and just be like, I don't know why I want to go to A&M. I don't know why I want to be an engineer. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And in through that, the voice of my parents came back to me that no matter what I told them I was planning to do from very young, you know, if it was a lawyer, if it was a sports announcer, an engineer, my dad, my mom would always say, that's great, just as long as it's what God wants you to do. They'd always tell me, just do what God wants you to do. And so I just realized that, and I was like, you know what? That's right. Like if God created me, he created me with a plan, and I need to ask him what he wants me to do. And so I said, like, Lord, what do you want me to do? And then it was amazing. The ceiling opened and I started to rise. And the Lord said, I want you to be a priest. No, I'm just kidding. None of that happened. That's what I was hoping would happen. But
like this light came through.
I was floating. It was
the
insane.
stained glass window, and it was shining on me. And
exactly. No, not at all. That was not it at all. I just kept, I didn't get an answer directly, but I just kept asking. And finally I was reminded of these moments where I felt called to be a priest and realized like I never really discerned that. I never prayed about that. I never asked Jesus if that's what he was calling me to do. And so I finally did, and I felt peace about it. So I talked to my pastor. He led me to Father Dat, who was the vocations director.
Okay.
And Father Dat was asking me like some questions, and then he was like, he put the hard sell on me. You know?
Oh, really?
Yeah, he put the hard sell on me. He's like, you know what? You have 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, you need to like apply, or else you're going to miss the opportunity to apply this year, because I'm a senior in high school.
Okay.
And so basically he's telling me you have to decide if you're going to go to the seminary in 2 weeks. So I was like, oh my goodness, this is a lot of pressure. So and he's like, I don't know what you think, but I think you're called to be a priest. And that was really helpful for me. And I was like, okay, I think, if he can see it, maybe it's true. And so I went and visited the seminary in Dallas, and I hung out with the guys and just saw how cool they were. And so I decided to apply, and Father Dad accepted me. And I went to seminary. And that's really like half the journey. So if you think
if you didn't have that 2 week period, if it was longer, would you have, is it better that you had that short amount of time?
I think for sure. For me, it was exactly what I needed. Had I come to Father Dat in the fall, and it was like, yeah, let's discern this over time,
You would have found an excuse or something.
Yeah, and so it was really helpful to have that kind of that short, intense time of prayer where I felt like it, and I had the grace to just respond and go, and so it was awesome, and that's.
Do you think that's why God put you in the friend zone with that girl?
Definitely, yeah, probably. It was, it was probably that, and but it didn't stop though. When you go to seminary, it's a whole new step in discernment. My first 2 years were so difficult for me.
Really? Why is that?
I mean, I was riding a high of like the Lord called me to be a priest. Like, oh, I just want to do anything you wanted me to do, Jesus. I'm excited. Like, it's gonna be awesome. And then the day before I entered, I went to a wedding of a friend, and I remember being at the wedding and just being like, I don't know what my role here is. What am I supposed to do? Everyone's dancing. Can I dance with girls? I don't think so. Like, I've always wanted to have a wedding like this, a wedding reception.
Were you imagining yourself as the groom?
Yeah, exactly. And just being like, this has been taken away from me. If I pursue this, I'll never have this. And I remember just like I was crying at the end of the night, just so like, I can't believe I'm doing this. And I went to seminary, and then you just kind of had to like, every day was almost a grind in some ways of like, I'm never going to go on a date again in my life. Like, I'm never, if I pursue this, I can't believe this.
How do you get over that? How do you work with it?
It's a great question. It was just, I had to continue to bring it to prayer and continue to talk to Jesus about it. And I had some really good spiritual direction, just to be really honest with Jesus and just tell him how difficult this is. The biggest piece of advice that someone gave me though, and it was take seminary one day at a time. And so that's what I did. And I had entered, and I knew myself, I said, you have to take a whole year and then decide after a year where you're at. And so I knew I had that, and I knew if I could just take one day at a time, and if today, maybe thinking about being celibate my whole life is difficult, but I can be celibate today, and I can live it today, and I can live it tomorrow. And so once you kind of accumulate a long time and you kind of go through these difficult trying moments, or even being contacted once, and I found out that this girl that I liked, she started liking me when I was in seminary. I know.
I was about to ask you that. Did you notice that after you decided that you wanted to take this path towards priesthood, that all the girls are starting to come out of the woodwork?
I know. I have a great story about that. It was like, where were you 2 years ago? I wouldn't be discerning this. We'd be dating if you had like come out and talked to me. But there was this girl once that she told me, she's like, oh my goodness, you want to be a priest? She's like, this is great. People have told me I should be a priest. We should get married and then we can both be priests together. She was Anglican. She was Episcopal. So like they could be priests. And I was like, no, you don't understand. Like that won't work. But yeah, there was all these girls that were just approaching me, and it's, so it
what do you tell them?
I just said, I know it's just I feel like that's the Lord's calling me. We'll see what happens. With some of them that I knew well, I would joke with them. I was like, where was this last year? Why are you talking to me now?
Are any of those that girl that friend zoned you back in high school?
We never had a direct conversation, but she told one of my other best friends about like, maybe we should have been married, because we were always just we have been friends since kindergarten. So there was kind of always like, maybe, were we more than friends or not? And anyways, but yeah, you just kind of have to work through that. I mean, there was times in seminary where I just, you fall in love with a girl that you meet and you're like, oh my goodness, like I could marry this girl. But again, like it was just, I had to bring it to prayer. I had to say, Jesus, I feel like I could marry this girl. I would love to have a wife the rest of my life. But I think you're calling me to this, and this is difficult. Like, where do you want me? And again, I just had peace. When I really laid it all out there, I had more peace with pursuing the priesthood than I did with that kind of emotional high I was having for my attraction for a girl or something. And so I was just continually bringing it to Jesus and recognizing that, like, if I followed this invitation to sacrifice marriage for him, that he would give me the grace to be faithful to it. and to find joy in it. So
it must be really tough being in Rome with all the Italian women walking around, very exotic. You're in a European country,
I know.
And I would assume that they're very fashionable as well.
That's true.
And what was the closest you ever got to hanging it up and saying, okay,
the year one, I was really close. At the spring semester, I called my dad and I said, I think I got to get out of here. I just need to go and just go to college and date more. And, I had dated in high school, but I just wasn't sure. It was just so hard with celibacy. So I was on that phone call, and had my dad said, well, okay, well, yeah, maybe take a year and discern it, I think I would have. But my dad was like, why don't you keep praying about it? And the girl that I had liked the time, he was like, I don't know if it'll work with her. She's Protestant. You're Catholic. It won't. I mean, it's just, y'all are so committed to y'all's individual faiths that it may not be a good relationship long term. And so maybe really think about it. And so he kind of really encouraged me to continue discerning, continue to praying about it. And that was probably the biggest moment. So year one, I think, was probably the closest I was.
Would it have been easier if you were here in Houston? Is this girl from Houston or?
Yeah. I mean, so I would have been, it might have been, maybe had we been spending more, it might have been easier to leave. I mean, at this time, my first year in seminary, I was in Dallas. I was in Dallas for the first 4 years. So I was in the States, but maybe. But, it wasn't just her. I mean, I was meeting girls on, I was at a regular university, so you're meeting girls on campus. And even just the weird things of trying to figure out, how do I talk to a girl? Before, I didn't care if I was trying to flirt with her, trying to get her to like me. That was just part of my what I did. And now it's I can't. I'm not.
Yeah. How does that conversation go? When do you slip in that you're on the path towards priesthood?
Yeah, I know you have to.
Do you say it right away? Hi, I'm going to be a priest.
Yeah.
Or do you kind of find a place to kind of slip it into the conversation?
I know. You had to get better at it. It's the problem of concupiscence and sin. There's even times where you feel, and we talk to other guys, and I'll just admit it, that there's times when it's almost hard. You're talking to this girl, she's good looking, and you're having some chemistry, you're laughing, having a good time. She's like, so what are you studying? And you're like, philosophy. She's like, oh, why are you studying philosophy? Oh, I mean, I just kind of like it. You're trying to avoid any I want to keep my options open. Maybe if I leave, I don't want her to think I'm in the seminary. But usually it tends to come out, pretty early. And no, you just have to say, yeah, I'm studying to be a Catholic priest, and then it's kind of
how do they react to that?
Yeah, it's the whole gamut. I mean, you get all types of different reactions. Some are like, what? Really? And some are like, oh, wow, that's really cool. Sometimes you get weird reactions. Sometimes they're like, but doesn't that mean you can't get married? And, and you're like, yeah, I can.
Do you have any girls that see it as a challenge and think, oh, maybe I can keep him from becoming a priest or something?
We call them chalice chippers.
That's what they're called. That's what you guys call them.
They call them chalice chippers. Yeah,
that's a term that the seminarians use.
Sure, in the seminary.
That's
chalice
the first
chippers.
time I've heard that.
Oh, really? Chalice chipper. Yeah, they're chipping our chalice. Yeah, no, I mean there are. I mean whether they admit it or not, there are girls that all of a sudden you kind of feel are really trying. Maybe I can get a seminary, and I don't blame them. It's hard to find good men out there sometimes for them, and we're on campus, and we're there's always a mystery to us. It's like, wow, why is he's willing to give up all this, and so they're faithful. They may not even realize, but it's just. But yeah, there's definitely girls that you just kind of. It almost seems like it trick. They're like maybe I can. Get
come on, let's admit it. You're a good-looking guy. Okay, you're charismatic, you smile a lot, you're happy, people like to be around you.
Yeah.
So I could see why a girl might want to, to get with you and spend more time with you and say, oh, let's forget about you being a priest.
I know you have to be careful. You have to be really careful in situations where you just have to have your own little boundaries and and just and be really mindful of your own emotions and how you're doing and how she's making you feel. And it's like, okay, yeah, I really do want to try to make her laugh. And you got all these things that you got to be careful about, and just and be honest with yourself. And then you just got to find you can't go like if she's like, hey, why don't you come over and watch a movie? It's like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. It's just little things. You got to have boundaries. But yeah, there's not really a handbook on how to talk to girls as a seminarian.
They don't have a class for you on that.
Yeah, they probably should, but it's probably different for all guys. Guys are at different levels of how they have interacted with girls before they entered seminary, and so it's kind of your own personal journey, and you have to kind of get used to it and work on it.
Do you talk with the other seminarians about it?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. We have our own little support group. Okay. Keep each other accountable, ask them what they do, what's okay, what's not okay.
So it's a different type of wingman.
Exactly. Have you heard how bad he is at this? Instead of saying positive qualities, they just throw in the bad qualities. So
you're getting introduced to a girl and he just walks up, he's studying to become a priest.
Yeah, exactly. He's taken again.
No. Yeah. Hands off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So at what point in your childhood did you actually think the first thought of becoming a priest? Was it that 5-year-old in the shower type thing?
Yeah,
are there any videos of that? Yeah, well, I mean, not in the shower type thing, but you know what I mean?
Like preaching? That's a great question. I'll have to ask my mom. She's been, ask her if she has any pictures of me preaching or doing things that were priestly. But I actually never really thought, it never occurred to me. It was so strange. When I was doing that, I just never thought maybe I should be a priest. It wasn't until I went on that conference freshman year of high school that
there was really no idea until that conference that you told.
Yeah, until that conference. And I had been an altar server as well. So I was around the church a lot, and I was, one would think that it would happen, but it was actually a really cool way in which the Lord had worked it, because the call came later, and then I was able to look back and say, oh, wow, the Lord had prepared me, and this would make sense. So
it makes sense that all of these things had happened.
Exactly.
That you were friend zoned, that you went to this, to the conference, and then all of that.
Exactly. So
isn't that funny how that works out?
I know. It's crazy. It's crazy.
So talk to me about how you actually first did go into, so you had that first 2 weeks with Father Dat. Once you said to him, okay, I'm doing this, what happens next?
Yeah, it's a long process. So then you have to write an autobiography about your life. And so you kind of, you write out everything, how you grew in your faith, what do you know, these types of things. And I thought it would be hard, and then maybe I was a little too full of myself. I had 12 pages by the end of it, and so then you submit that, and then you have a formal interview. Father Dat and I had a formal interview, and mine was on Good Friday. I don't know, thinking about that, there was kind of something symbolic about. Wow. my interview with him was on Good Friday, and so we had this formal interview. He kind of asked you questions more, trying to find out about you. And then and after that, you have a psychological evaluation, a very long psychological. You're answering 1,000 questions, true, false, fill in the blank. It took me 3.5 hours just to get through it. Yeah. And then you have a one-on-one with a psychologist, and she asks you questions. She goes through all these things, and then that's submitted to Father Dat.
What type of questions? Do you remember any of them?
Yeah, I mean they're pretty crazy. It's kind of funny. The true false, those are you get so tired, but by the end of it, you're kind of it's even you kind of feel like they're trying to incriminate you no matter what you say. Have you told people about your thoughts to kill somebody? And you're like, I don't. It's true, false. I have told people about that. And I was like, I haven't thought about that. And I haven't told anybody. I don't know how to answer this, but it's all part, it's psychology, it's a science, but, and then they ask you random questions, draw a picture of a house with a family and then tell me the story. And then sometimes they showed me these pictures of these different scenes, and you had to describe what was going on. And I was really nervous. I didn't want to someone to think I'm this mass murderer. And so, but some of these pictures were like, it's hard to describe without seeing that. And I remember there was this one where this person was laying on a table, another person had like what looked like a knife over them. And she's like, "What's going on here?" And I was like, surgery, real primitive surgery, and it just looks like that, Do
you think they're trying to see how dark your mind can go? Is that what they're trying to?
I have no idea. I might have done myself a disservice by that. They might have been like, does he even see that this could be a bad situation? And I'm like I don't know. Somehow I passed, or Father Dat was like, well, we'll see how it works out with this guy. And then you have this panel interview as the last thing. So they compile all that information.
Who's on the panel?
Father Dat's on the panel. At the time was the associate vocations director, and Sister Anita was on the panel. There was not the psychologist that gave me the test, but another psychologist that was reading my results. Father TJ hadn't been on that. So a couple other priests from the diocese that had worked with vocations. And so there's about 8 people in the room. And then it's just kind of like, you sit down and then they just start asking you a bunch of questions and you just have to answer them. And
do they pull up that true or false question and say, they said here, according to number 23?
Yeah, I know they do.
Did they do that?
They give you some hard questions. They didn't go so much in detail, but they might have said in your psychological evaluation, it said this, like talk to us about that.
What was the most difficult question to answer?
That's a good question. I probably escaped pretty lightly. I guess I just had, the sister, she asked me some tough questions. And I remember her being like, she's like, well, you've grown up with your family and you've been, you seems to be pretty dependent on your family a lot. Like how can you tell me that you're ready to be on your own? I was like, I'm 18. I don't know if I can. Of course I've only been, I remember that just being like really startling. Like it felt like I was in trouble because I had only like relied on my parents at that point. But that's the only one that comes to mind, but a lot of that is like it was so traumatic. It's kind of blocked out of my memory of what happened, So
you have to be hypnotized to come back.
Exactly.
Do you wake up in a cold sweat every once in a while thinking about that sister asking you those questions?
Exactly.
So you go through the panel, and then after that panel, what happens?
So after the panel, for me, I don't know if they still do it this way. They kind of took about 10 to 15 minutes. And it's basically where they vote. They have a vote where I'm not present for. So I step out of the room, they vote. And then Father Dat came out and told me the result of their vote. And he said, we voted to allow you to enter the seminary and we want you to go to Dallas and we'll make a recommendation to the cardinal. And if he puts a seal of approval on our vote, then you'll be officially accepted as a seminarian. And so then they compile the report, send it to Cardinal Leonardo, and then he wrote a letter officially accepting me, and then I was sent to the University of Dallas. And this was about June that I found out. So it was kind of weird because I graduated not knowing where I was going to be in the fall. I hadn't been accepted to seminary, and I didn't know what was going to happen.
Oh, wow.
So on my graduation, I had no idea where I was going to be. So, on graduation, you kind of put a different college on your hat. Yeah. And so I put Harvard on mine, which was a complete lie. I graduated like 72 people back. It was like, no way this guy's going to Harvard, but it was funny.
So did anybody enter, at the same time as you and go with you to Dallas?
Yeah. So there's 8 of us that year from this area that entered, and 4 of us went to Dallas.
Okay. And then the other 4...
went to Louisiana in Covington. There's another seminary in St. Joseph's, which is run by Benedictine monks, but it's for a diocesan.
Okay. So how many people do you know of any, how many people actually went to that panel interview and didn't make it to the...
That's a good question. You'd have to ask Father Dat. That would be a better question for Father Dat. I don't know. I think if they probably had, if we had, I bet it was something like maybe 10 people went to the panel and 8 of us made it or something like that.
Okay.
But the process is long with a lot of things, so that at some point, if my psychological evaluation had come back really, really bad, they probably would have not taken me to the panel and said, hey, you got to work some things out. Yeah. Or if it was an interview with Father Dat or the autobiography revealed something.
So there are lots of other spots where you could have.
Exactly.
Where they would have weeded people out.
Yeah. So, I think the people that the vocation director decides to send to the panel, he's pretty confident they're going to make it.
Okay. And then so when you go to Dallas, it's just like a regular university life? Is that what it's like?
No, you live at the seminary, and I go to the University of Dallas, a small Catholic school, but anyone can go to that school. So that's where I take classes. But I live at the seminary, so we have a structured day. You wake up in the morning, do morning prayer, you have mass, you eat your meals at the seminary with those guys, you live with those guys.
Okay.
They have like their own formation, teaching you how to pray, the like stuff. So.
Okay, so it's not like you're a regular college student and you just check in with them every once in a while.
Which was kind of hard too. I remember telling some of my friends that it was hard because college was always something I looked forward to, like having more freedom. I didn't have parents around to tell me what to do.
Was it tough to not being able to go to those crazy parties that you hear about when you're in college?
I know it was like, I mean, my buddies would always say like, oh, last night I was out at 2 a.m. We were hanging out, having a good time. We had curfew. We couldn't do that. So freedom was way more limited, which was kind of tough. So,
okay. So how long were you there in Dallas?
4 years.
4 years.
Got a bachelor's degree in philosophy.
Okay. So on top of that 4 years, then
I've done 3 years in Rome.
Okay. So on your fourth year, they told you, okay, it looks like you're going to go to Rome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So at this point, you'd been out of your parents' house for a while now.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Do you think it would have been a little more difficult for your parents to accept that you were going to join the priesthood if you were not the third son, if you were the only son?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think I find that with most guys who are their only child, it's really hard on the parents. I was in a great position because I was the youngest. My brother was already married with 2 kids. So my parents already had grandchildren. There's no worries of that. The name is already passing on.
Yes.
Not that White has much of a legacy to live. I mean, it's kind of a basic name. But so there was no worries about a lot of those things that's difficult for parents. Like, I wanted grandchildren, or I want our name to pass on. And so, for the only child or the only boy, sometimes it is difficult for the parents. But yeah, I was at a point where I think my parents were at a point where were easily accepting of that. And they kind of saw it. I mean, they didn't tell me about it, but once I told them, both my parents were like, oh, this makes a lot of sense.
Do you think it would have been more difficult for you had you had been the only son? Thinking there's some pressure to pass on the family name?
Yeah,
to give your parents grandkids?
I think it would have been. It certainly would have been really hard if my parents weren't supportive. So if I could sense that it was difficult for them, it'd be very, very hard for me. Some guys do it and it's tough for them, but my parents were very, very supportive, very encouraging, accepting if I wanted to leave, accepting if I wanted to stay, and just really supportive. So I was blessed.
Do you have a lot of friends in the seminary that have difficulty like that?
Some, I would say probably the majority of parents are generally supportive, and by the time where I am, so I've been in for 7 years, by this time, usually parents have kind of come around at least and are more supportive. So it's probably a higher percentage of parents that have a difficulty right at the beginning. But once you're kind of in and they kind of see their son kind of transforming and really they probably experience a little bit more joy in their son, a little bit more fulfillment, and can see like, wow, this is something that's good for him, that it helps them. My parents were supportive all the way along, but there are some parents that I know that it's like, it's really hard for me to talk to my mom about the seminary, or sometimes I'll go out to dinner with my friends in the seminary and they'll warn me like, hey, my parents are not really that excited I'm in the seminary. So,
really?
Yeah. So it's kind of like, let's not talk too much about the seminary, about that stuff, so we kind of, sometimes that topic can feel a little bit off limits.
It's a little touchy when it comes to the parents. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so this group of guys in Dallas, so you all graduated together. Where are they now?
A little bit spread out all over. So about 20 of us that graduated. Some of them came to Houston to study here at St. Mary's Seminary in Houston.
Okay.
I know one guy went to Indiana to study in Mundelein. I know myself and a couple others, we went to Rome. Another guy went to Chicago to study. We had some that went to Louisiana, Notre Dame, and New Orleans. And so, it's just kind of once you graduate there, you kind of spread out. Even some in the state of Washington are there too as well. So,
who makes the decision where they go?
So your bishop of your sponsoring diocese. So every seminarian has a sponsoring diocese. Mm-hmm. So like I'm sponsored by the Galveston Houston diocese. So Cardinal Leonardo decided for me. But every bishop has their own decision on where they go after that to study the second half of seminary.
So speaking of your sponsoring diocese, is it the diocese that paid for your education? Do your parents chip in with that? How does that work financially?
Here in Houston, it's the diocese. The easy way to explain it is the diocese pays for it. If you discern out it's a non-interest loan. They kind of ask you to slowly pay back for the first couple of years where you got general credits.
Okay.
But for the most part, the diocese pays for all of it. So it's really nice. And it helps with the guy not feeling pressure of like, I'm incurring a lot of debt right now because I'm in seminary. I should get out.
Okay. So meaning discern out when you decide you don't want to pursue it.
Exactly. Sorry. Yeah, then that's the kind of lingo. You discern out of the seminary and back.
And then you've got this loan that you've got to kind of pay off.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that happen often?
Yeah. I think the statistics are about 50 to 60% of the guys that enter just leave the seminary.
Okay. And then the guys in Rome.
Yeah.
How often do they discern out? Are they?
It becomes a little bit less, just in general when you get to. So anyone in Rome has gone through the first 2 or 4 years of seminary.
Okay.
So and that's generally when most people leave, kind of in the early years when. So once in Rome, it's a little bit less. It's unique in Rome in that you will have some guys that will just say, it's too hard to live this far away from home. And they'll go back to the United States and continue to be studying to be a priest, but they'll just do it in the United States. But so it becomes even less, like I'm trying to think. My class was about 45 when I entered in Rome, 45 others. And I think we're going to ordain, or about 35 of us are ordained to the diaconate. So about 10 of them left.
Is there any point where you can like kind of put it on pause maybe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's ways to do that, and some guys are doing that. There's like you could say a common thing to do is take a pastoral year.
Okay.
And that's like a year where you live a year in the parish as an internship. Now it's a little unique for us here because in Houston, most guys do, just as a general rule, take a pastoral year.
Okay.
In Rome, for whatever reason, the cardinal has decided not to have me take a pastoral year. And the guys in Rome don't usually take a pastoral year. And so some guys in Rome might do that, or some guys in other places where they're not required to take a pastoral year will say, can I take a year to live in the parish? Because when you're in the parish, it's a little bit easier to see what your daily life would look like for the rest of your life.
Yes.
And so it's a year where they can let me just do a little bit more intentional discernment away from academics so that I can really see, is this what I want to do with my life? So that's one way you can put seminary, like a little bit like let me just hold on before I continue to move forward here.
So do you think your time here at St. Faustina is kind of like a condensed pastoral year?
Yeah. That's like kind of what they did. So last summer I was at Cyprus, Christ the Redeemer. And then this summer, definitely both those summers, like really compact, condensed stuff. And so like Father Dat will do an evaluation of me and how I did, as if he had me as a pastoral year student.
Okay. And do you see it like every day thinking, okay, I could get used to this. This is something I see myself.
That's honestly, the summers have always been what's carried me through the seminary. You get lost in academics, you get lost in that where you kind of forget why, or for me, I forgot why I was called, what I really loved. But it's when I'm with the people in the parish. And this summer, especially as a deacon, it's just been incredible. Preaching, doing baptism. I mean, just all that has been just amazing. So it's awesome.
So in the seminary, okay, let's kind of get behind the curtain a little. What happens among the seminarians? Because I hear some stories that, it gets a little crazy, I mean, you guys being, just silly, because I went to an all boys school in high school. Yeah. And, guys just get really silly. Is that the way it is in the seminary?
Yeah.
Playing pranks and all that?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's especially in the early years. Like a lot of guys, when we entered, you're 18 years old and then you're living together and you're just kind of, so there is a lot of craziness where you're
still a little immature.
Exactly, and You got a lot of energy. And so, yeah, there's a lot of pranks, and a lot of different
things. Did you prank Father Dad while you were in the seminary?
No, I didn't.
Or you just don't want to admit to it?
Yeah. We'll keep that off camera. No, I'm just kidding. No,
There's this guy, he actually.
Yeah, no, I never did. I mean, the one thing with Father Dad is that I was in Dallas, but he lived in Houston a lot. So him and I weren't around too much each other. But no, we did have some guys pranked a lot. And
like what type of things did they? Just each other? You prank each other?
Mostly each other. Yeah, we wouldn't really prank the faculty or the priests in charge of us. It's a little dangerous. Just kidding. They're not spiteful. But yeah, I mean, we would prank each other. So, I mean, one guy, we thought he looked like this actor. And so we would just put this crazy picture of this actor as William Dafoe. He plays the villain in one of the Spider-Mans. And we would just put a crazy picture of William Dafoe and like his prayer book, his Bible, all around his room. So anytime he would just pull all these random pictures of him, and like this is probably the best prank I think we had. Is he had told us, like, he was really excited because the Knights of Columbus were going to be really generous, and they told him they were going to send him a check to support him in his discernment. He was really excited about this, telling us like, "Oh, this is great. This is what I needed." It was, money's a little tight right now. It's perfect, and so we all knew it was coming. And he had even told like the secretary of the seminary, who knew well that it was coming, and like, just let me know if it comes. I can't wait. Well, one of my buddies, knowing this, found out the name of the council, its number, and its address. He put their return address there, put a picture of William Dafoe in the letter, went up to campus, mailed it so it was postmarked when it came in. The secretary saw it, called the guy in his room, said, "Hey, the check is here. Come on and get it." And he goes, opens it up, and it's a picture of Willem Dafoe. Yeah. And so,
does he really look like Willem Dafoe? Or is it just a slight resemblance?
It's a slight resemblance, and it's like one of those where like he's just kind of funny, like it just kind of does some different movements like him, and it's one of those things where we kind of like we could see him. Because Willem Dafoe is a lot older than him. So like when you grow up, that's what you're going to look like.
You're going to look like Willem Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So what surprised you the most about life as a seminarian?
That's a good question. I mean, like I said, maybe it's probably what everyone would think would be the obvious thing. I think living day to day of trying to wrestle with celibacy was definitely like, that was surprising how difficult that could be and how much you needed to wrestle with that. I'd say one of the more shocking things, and one thing you're never really warned about in seminary, is you get such close bonds. I kind of like to think that it's like the military. You're all going through this really difficult thing, this really difficult discernment, and you're all doing the exact same thing and living the exact same life, that you get really, really close to all the guys. And so that's a good surprise of making those friends. But the difficult part of that, and something I didn't think about, is when guys decide to discern out. It's really painful almost.
For you, to see somebody discern out.
Yeah, you're excited, you're happy that they're doing what God wants them to do. Usually you're like, this is a good discernment, it's good. But it's difficult for you. One, the enemy likes to use those times to be like, well, if he discerned out, you probably should discern out too. Another thing is like, you just get so close, and that your friendship is going to be just a little bit different for the rest of your life, because you're no longer pursuing the exact same path. And there's a sense in which, although we can make really good friends with everybody, there's a sense in which some of the things you go through, only another priest is going to know what that's like. And you kind of have a sense of that in seminary. And so you kind of realize that there's going to be a lack in that intimate sharing that might have occurred, and that intimate friendship that might have occurred there had he stayed, especially if he was a good close friend.
So you guys are like sort of like brothers in arms, band of brothers type thing. You're going through all of this. You share all of this experience and all of that, and then just seeing one guy go is sort of like, like having somebody, kind of just like get injured and have to leave the unit or something like that.
Exactly. That's that. Yeah, I think that's a good analogy to how it feels. You do get excited for them. Generally, it's a good decision. They're at peace and you're happy for them, but it's just difficult for you a little bit.
That's a lot of emotions. I mean, thinking, what if I discern out as well.
Yeah.
At the same time, you feel bad that, we're not going to be able to hang out with this guy anymore, or that type of thing. Were there a lot of them?
Yeah. I went through a lot of difficulty with that when I was in Dallas. Father David Michael and I actually, he was my best friend when I entered. Him and I entered, he was the first one I met. He was like a year ahead of me at that time, or a few years ahead of me, and him and I got along really, really well in our first year of seminary. And then he moved on to Houston, and so I didn't see him for a few years.
So he was with you in Dallas?
Yeah, he was with me in Dallas, and him and I were really good friends there. And then he moved on, and that was a bummer for me. He didn't leave the seminary though, so it wasn't as hard. But then the friends I made after that, every good friend I had after that, either like discerned out basically or left the seminary. And so it was pretty difficult. You have these intimate sharing moments of your struggles, and then they leave, and then that person's gone.
And you're like the last man standing.
Exactly. And
so it must have been really cool to get back together with Father David Michael.
Oh, it's been incredible. Yeah, him and I. Father Dak complains because we stay up and we're talking and laughing all the time and keeping him up. And no, it's been a huge blessing to be back and hanging out with him. He's awesome.
So tell me about life in Rome. So how often do you get to go out? Are you restricted to certain areas? How free are you to go around Rome?
Yeah, normally we're pretty free. We go to class, and just to go to class is about a 30-minute walk through Rome for me, just one way. So, I'm walking through Rome an hour every day. And, but yeah, then often in the afternoons, if you don't have too much homework, you can go out and go see the city, walk around.
Do a little tourist thing.
Exactly. See the places that people don't get time to see, even when you're, what tourists are coming, because you're there the whole year, so you get to see a lot of places. And then and I get a chance to go all over Europe. I get once a month we have a weekend where we can go and travel anywhere we want to travel.
And everything's pretty close together in Europe, so
exactly
you can go pretty far.
Yeah, once you're over there, I've gotten round trips for $50,
nice,
to Paris or something like that. So
do you go with some of the other seminarians, or?
Yeah. So we'll go for a weekend. We'll go out and travel and get an Airbnb. And, one of the favorite trips that I do is St. Therese of Lisieux is one of my favorite saints, along with like all the other Catholics in the world. But, so I've gone, October 1st is her feast day. And the past 3 years I've gone to Lisieux and to her basilica and there for the big celebration of her feast day. And so that's just some of the fun things you get to do when you're in Rome and travel around and stuff.
What are there any places that you haven't checked off on your list yet that you plan to go to?
Yeah, one place is I want to go to Lithuania, where the original Divine Mercy image is.
Ooh,
yeah, I've gotten to see Saint Faustina in Poland, but I haven't gone to see the original image, and so I'd like to go do that.
You got to send us a picture when you do that.
I'll do that. Yeah. It's
send it to Father David Michael.
I will. Yeah,
they could put it up on the screen during Mass one.
There you go. Yeah,
one Sunday and say, okay, we received this picture from Deacon Joseph White.
Yeah,
you remember him? He was here.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah, I'll definitely be sure to do that and send that. But yeah, that might be one of the bigger ones that I haven't checked off that I'd like to go do.
What are the other big ones that you have already done?
So, I've been to Lourdes in France. Got to go to see Our Lady of Lourdes in France. I've gone to a lot of places in Italy. Got to see St. John Bosco and the Frassati as well, and Pier Giorgio Frassati. And then that's out in Turin. I've gotten to go skiing a couple times in Austria. Go skiing in the Alps. I love to go skiing. Is one of the things I like to do. And then
you don't get a whole lot of skiing here in Houston.
No, you don't. But I like to go and go skiing. I've been around Spain a lot to see different places there. So I've just gotten a lot of Vienna. I got to see some like the famous operas.
So that's the upside of being sent to Rome.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like the world is at your fingertips almost. Europe is right there. It's so accessible.
So in the Vatican, I understand you have a really interesting experience meeting the Pope.
Yeah. I was so fortunate to be able to meet the Pope. I'll preface this story with another story where I thought I was going to meet the Pope. I got to serve midnight mass when the Pope was doing it at St. Peter's Basilica. They needed extra. At the time, I was an extraordinary minister of Holy Communion, and they needed people to distribute communion. And I always heard when you serve the Pope, you get to meet the Pope. So I was excited, but I didn't end up getting to meet the Pope because when I went to distribute communion, I went outside for the people watching it on the TV and distributed it. And it was the funny experience that I had is when I was distributing and saying the body of Christ, all of a sudden I felt this huge slap right on my arm. And I was like, what happened? And I looked and a bird had pooped right on my arm, all over my cassock and surplice, and it was nasty. And I was like, "Oh my goodness!" And it was like less than 3 inches away from going into the ciborium where all the hosts were. I was like, thank the Lord that didn't go in there. I don't know what I've done. But that was funny. But that was I thought I was going to meet the Lord. Instead, I got pooped on. I thought I was going to meet the Pope. Instead, I got pooped on. And then. But then a few months later. So
is that something that they teach you? There's no lesson to, okay, this is what happens when this happens with the host.
Yeah, I mean, you would have just had to probably put it in water and let it disintegrate is kind of the best way to do that. I think, but the whole thing would have been ruined. It would have been a whole mess. It would have been crazy.
You think they should add that in under canon law somewhere? This is the Deacon Joseph White rule.
Yeah.
Or what to do with the host.
I would love to have a name of a rule. That would be awesome. The Deacon Joseph White rule. I'll take that. So that was great.
Even if it's associated with poop.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I kind of like to think though. I tell the story that I saw it and I protected our Lord and just kind of hovered.
Oh, there you go. Yes,
it was a heroic moment.
Sort of like the Matrix.
Yeah, exactly. So it was, but no, that's not how it happened. So I thought I was going to meet the Pope that day. I didn't. A few months later, they had the ad limina visit. So it's to the threshold of the apostles is what it's called, ad limina apostolorum. And it's where the bishops come and venerate the relics of Peter and Paul that are in Rome. And they're supposed to do that every 5 years. And so it was their time to do that. And during that visit, that pilgrimage where they come and pray for all of us here, where Cardinal Nardo comes to pray for all of us here in Houston, they visit with the Pope. And when he got to visit with the Pope, he got to bring a guest with him. And so he brought me to come with him. And so the Pope...
How'd he choose you?
It's kind of a tradition that anyone studying in Rome, and since I was already there and we were there and they heard hey, you can bring your seminarians or your priests who are there. And so
there were a group of you.
Yeah, there was a group of us. So all the Texas bishops went at one time. And so every bishop who had seminarians at the North American College brought their seminarians. And so we went in and I met with the Pope, and what I did was I brought a papal zucchetto, a white zucchetto. It's like a little white hat you see him wearing normally around right on top of his head like this. And it's called a zucchetto. And on the inside, I put little stickers. And one said, "Tu equipo," in Spanish, your team. And it's a picture of San Lorenzo soccer team logo. And then below it, I put "mi equipo." And it's my team and the logo of the Houston Texans.
Not the Dynamo.
I thought about it, but I thought the Texans looked a little bit more Texas, a little bit more noticeable, like Texans.
Yeah.
So I could have gone with any of the Houston teams, but I went with your football team is soccer, my football team is American football. So that was kind of my idea, but it was pretty funny. We have some good pictures of me showing it to him, and then he laughed, and that was my whole goal. I wanted him to laugh.
That's awesome. Who was taking the pictures?
They have the papal household has a professional photographer, and so I did that. And then the tradition is that if you give the Pope a zucchetto, he'll put it on.
Yes.
And so what he did is he put it on. He said, "Now all my powers have gone into this hat, and now I'm giving it back to you."
That.
Yeah. And then he put his normal one back on because he said he has a special size that he likes, and so he doesn't want to, he didn't want it to fall off.
They don't make that size public, so next time.
I know they need to, but he put that on and but it gave it back to me. And then so I have that zucchetto still, and it's cool.
Where is it?
It's in Rome. I should have brought it. That would have been fun.
well, you might run into him again, and
that's true. I can give it back to him, and then
I would have thought that, I don't know, maybe it's just my idea of what the Vatican's like. But I would have thought that, maybe you see him walking through the hall now and then, like, like you're in the office, you run into somebody from human resources in the hall, say hello, drink around the water fountain. No.
Yeah, no, not quite. Not quite. It's not like you might see the CEO walk through the hall or something. No, we don't.
So nothing like that.
Yeah, I live pretty far away from him. The house where I live, it's technically as a Vatican address, but it's more like extraterritorial Vatican. So I'm about a 10-minute walk from St. Peter, so you don't get to run into him too often. And it's hard to just hit him on the street. He's got security around him and stuff.
Okay. That's an awesome story.
Yeah.
That's something you can take with you forever.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I was excited. My goal was to make him laugh, and he laughed, so it was fun.
Do you keep that picture with you at all times?
I do, yeah.
So in case you do run into him, hey, remember me? I'm the one with the...
Yeah, exactly. Right here. So I do. It's that was a really cool experience. Once in a lifetime for sure.
So I understand you spent some time in India?
Yeah.
When was that? Where does that fit in?
That was that summer after my first year in Rome and my second year in Rome. So when we were asked not to go back to the United States. So that's really the only stipulation you have that summer. There's no more classes, and they're like, you can't go back to the United States. But so we ask you to kind of build your own summer, make it formative, something that'll be memorable for you, and take advantage of the fact that you could be anywhere in the world. And some guys had gone to India, Calcutta, India, where Mother Teresa was and where she started her religious order of the Missionaries of Charity.
That is awesome. Yeah,
it was incredible. So myself and 5 others from my class, we went over there, and I was there for 5 weeks, and we just had some, it was probably the best experience and the most formative experience for me in seminary. And we get there, and it was crazy. I mean, we kind of lived very simple lives. We lived with some sisters, and there's no air conditioning anywhere, so you're kind of sleeping, and it's like monsoon season, very hot, humid, kind of like Houston with no air conditioning. So you're sweating through the night.
So how does that start? How do you decide to go there? Do you contact somebody in Calcutta? Do you send an email or give them a call, or do you get an endorsement?
Yeah. So we went and stayed with some other sisters. The Missionaries of Charities don't have places for people to stay. So we found some other sisters. We contacted them, and then we basically got housing. But with the Missionaries of Charity, they're just like, anyone can come and volunteer. So you just show up and you say, I'm going to volunteer.
So you can just knock on the door and...
Basically, yeah, it's pretty simple. And I suggest it to anybody, just go to Calcutta, go and serve for 5 weeks. You find a place to stay and stay for a while. And so we went, and in the mornings we would, I went to a place called Premdan, and it was a place for like the home for a dying. And so there's about 300 people that they had found on the streets and brought in. You take care of them. And so I was just doing really simple tasks of clipping their fingernails, washing the floors, making their beds, feeding them. These men who just are, because of illness and whatnot, can't take care of themselves anymore. So you just hang out with them for about 4 hours doing work, dishes, and the like. And then in the break for lunch, and then in the afternoon, I was at this place called Diadon, which is a place that Mother opened, an orphanage that she opened for kids who are disabled, either mentally or physically or both. And so in the afternoon, they had finished their school, and so we just go and hang out and play and with the kids and feed them. And it was
a lot
beautiful.
Of people speak English?
Yeah, so the sisters, that's their language that they speak to each other, the Missionaries of Charity, even in India.
Okay.
They speak English to each other. That's the language of their order. That Mother Teresa had decided to do English because it was a very universal language.
Okay.
And she knew she would be spreading. I guess she just had a sense from God that she'd be spreading over the world. And so she decided to make English her language. And so you can communicate with them. And then they teach their kids English. And a lot of people in India speak English. So it was pretty easy to get around, to do the things. And
not as difficult as Rome.
No, yeah. So it was good. I mean, I stuck out like a sore thumb in India way more than I did in Rome. I mean, they're like, "What are you doing here?" And so that for sure was different. But no, it was an incredibly spiritual experience for me. The sisters, they understand that when you're serving the poor, you're really serving Jesus Christ, as it talks about in Matthew 25.
Mm-hmm.
What you did for the least of my brothers, you did for me. And they really believe, they've started their order based on that scripture passage. And so even in adoration, we say these at the end called the divine praises. And one of them is, blessed be God in the most holy sacrament of the altar. And they add a divine praise right after that. And they say, we say, blessed be Jesus Christ in the most holy sacrament of the altar. They say, blessed be Jesus Christ in the poorest of the poor. And that just sums up their life.
Blessed be Jesus Christ in the poorest of the poor.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's their ministry. They would, they have mass at 6 a.m. They pray 3 holy hours a day. They pray a lot. They spend a lot of time with Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament. But they also, there's not really a disconnect. They spend time with Jesus, and then they go serve Jesus their whole day in the poor. And that was for real. There was this one kid who was in India, and his name was Santu. And he was really difficult to get to feed. And I had to feed him, and he's like, yeah. I was getting a taste of what it's like for parents trying to feed their kids.
How old was he?
He was probably like maybe 6, but he had a mental disability. So he was, you had to feed him, and, you had to tie him down. And so he's going like this but when I would sing, and I'd sing, I just had this idea to sing his name. And when I'd sing, he kind of calmed down. And I was singing Sanctus, Sanctus, which is like a mass part for Sanctus, which is like holy. And you sing it right before the Eucharist starts. And that was a moment that kind of woke me up, where it was actually very fitting that I was singing Sanctus at that moment, because it was Jesus there. And I was singing to him, and he is holy because Jesus is present with him. And so, there's just a lot of those moments, a lot of those.
Did it hit you at that time?
It did. Yeah, it really did. When I was singing that, and I was just kind of like, oh, wow, this is real, and this is, I guess I had a moment where I was kind of like, oh, maybe this is not good to be singing. Like, I was like, this is inappropriate. But then I was like, no, actually, this is the most appropriate time to sing it outside of the mass is to the poorest of the poor.
So when it hits you, is it overwhelming? Is it uplifting? What does it feel like when it hits you?
Yeah, I guess an overwhelming sense of peace, I would say. Just an overwhelming sense of, wow, this is really Jesus. And I really think that, and I believe it. It's not, I believe Jesus is present in the Eucharist, and now I really believe he's present in the poor. And it just, that intimate connection was pretty amazing when I would just come to prayer in the evening and spend an hour with him in the Eucharist, to all of a sudden be like, I spent all day with you serving, and now we're just getting to know each other in prayer. And I think that's, and it really related for me, like the priesthood. That's what I feel like the priesthood, when I'm serving the people of God, it's not, I'm really serving Jesus Christ. I'm serving the body of Christ, which is the people of God. And so, there's not that much disconnect from prayer and service. You have to have both, but there's not that much disconnect.
Do you have a journal entry about that when it first happened? Or did you call your parents?
No. So all of us, we all 5 of us that were together, we had this practice of, in the evenings, we'd come together, and by the time Holy Hour had happened, we had to be back for an 8 p.m. curfew with the sisters.
Okay.
And we missed dinner. So what we would do is, when you go over there, we had been told, like, bring a bunch of Cliff Bars because you won't be able to eat dinner. So we would just eat our Cliff Bars like dinner, and we would go around in what we called sharing graces, and just like a moment of grace.
Like a debrief.
Yeah, a little debriefing in the end of the day. And so I just shared that with them, and I wrote about it in my evaluation that I had to write for the end of the summer and submit to the seminary. But yeah, that was incredibly powerful for me.
That's amazing how Jesus reaches out to you through that child.
Yeah. It was pretty awesome. I just had a lot of really good moments like that, and just a recognition of what Mother Teresa was really doing. And how.
When you're in that moment, do you think, wow, all of this sacrifice, this is what it's all about. Everything that I've gone through, you know, the difficulty in the first year in Rome, did all that just kind of feel worth it?
Yeah, that's exactly how I would put it. It just feels like, yes, this is it. This is the invitation the Lord has given me, just to be able to serve Him for my whole life. You know, to be in some ways, you know, paid to serve Him, to work for.
Do you
His
go
church.
back to Rome, telling all the newer seminarians, the first year ones who are coming in, hey, go to Calcutta?
I do. Yeah. You know, it's hard. I lost 15 pounds. I got sick when I was there. I got scabies.
Because you have to get used to the water. You have to get used to
exactly. And so I got the most sick I've ever been in my life over there. Like if I was in the States, I probably would have gone to the hospital, but you know, you just don't trust the hospitals over there. But, and then, I ended up coming back with scabies. So, I mean, it's pretty insane what you have to deal with.
So you went from Rome to Calcutta. You spent 5 weeks there. Then you jump back into classes once you get back.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's right into your second year.
Yeah.
Wow. That's is it tiring?
It is. But it's actually like it's pretty rejuvenating, I would say. Because like I said, the summers were those times that I really felt the Lord was affirming my vocation. And so although it might have been like a lot of, like I didn't get much rest of work-wise, I felt rejuvenated in my mission and my sense of what I was supposed to be doing. And that just gives you a lot more desire and motivation to continue pursuing the priesthood.
Do you think it would have been different had you gone somewhere else?
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, I had thought about going to the Holy Land and learning Hebrew and trying to learn some of these biblical languages to learn that stuff. And I think that would have been fine. But my spiritual director was like, why don't you pray about that some more? And then I felt the Lord drawing me to Calcutta. And I think that would have been pretty close to detrimental had I gone and studied for the whole summer. I mean, it's great to learn the languages, but I needed time of ministry. And so, yeah, and I think I've learned things in Calcutta that I just wouldn't be able to learn other places. So
now that you're looking ahead, so you've spent the last 4 months here at St. Faustina, you're preparing to go back to Rome. How much you've got that last year in Rome, correct?
Yeah.
So after that last year in Rome, what happens next for you?
I'll be back in the diocese. So I'll be back here, and the cardinal will assign me to somewhere, most likely just to a parish as a parochial vicar, like Father David Michael, and I'll serve. And
so do you have a tentative date for your ordination?
June 5th, 2021.
All right. So there's an actual date already, not just it's in June sometime. No, but it's
June 5th.
June 5th, 2021. Okay, we'll mark that down on our calendar.
Please do. It's pretty unique. It's actually June 5th is my birthday, so I'm getting ordained on my birthday, which will be pretty exciting.
Okay, so that's why you remember it. It's just it's an easy
I know
easy
the
date
Lord
to remember.
has been blessed me, so I don't have to remember 2 dates when I'm
It's because you had Good Friday when you talked to Father Dad, and then
so it's been easy.
It's been easy. So June 5th, do you have any idea where you may be sent as a parochial vicar?
No idea. Yeah, no idea. So
do you get to kind of like, in the military, I prefer this particular, like my dad, he was in the Navy, and he first choice was Hawaii.
Oh, wow.
So, and we ended up in Hawaii. That's how I grew up in Hawaii. Do you have that kind of a choice, or is it all just completely out of your hands?
No, it's not. I don't think it's completely out of your hands. Now, maybe I need to make clarification. When I have one more year, that's actually after I'm a priest. So I have 2 more years in Rome. So I'll be ordained a priest next summer. Then I'll have a break, and then I'll have to finish my degree because I'm getting a higher degree than most priests get, so that I could then teach at the seminary and teach future priests as well.
Okay, so normally after that year, a priest would come back and be ordained, but you're going to be there for an extra year.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're looking at 2 years.
2 years from now, before I will be back in the diocese working. But at that point, it'll be just completely up to, like, there's a personnel board, a board of priests who decide, and make a recommendation for the cardinal where I go. But they interview you, and you could tell them like, I would really like this type of parish. I would love to have a school, or I'd love to be at a parish where there was Hispanic ministry or whatever, you feel like would be good for you, or a pastor that was supportive, or a pastor like this. And you just kind of.
So what are you thinking about?
I'm saying St. Faustina. Whatever you can do, give me a St. Faustina. Yeah.
Well, 2 years is a ways away, so a lot can happen within 2 years.
Exactly. It's kind of hard to know where I'll be in 2 years. It just depends a lot of where other people are, and where the diocese needs, and where they need priests.
So that summer in between this coming year and that final year for you, that extra year.
Yeah.
What do you have planned for that?
That's actually a little bit up in the air. We'll see. Usually people, when they go to, when they're in doing the kind of program I'm doing, you just spend a summer in the parish. So it's kind of like what I did here at St. Faustina, but you do it as a priest. And so you just kind of spend a summer of ministry. I, on the other hand, really would like to get some Spanish, more Spanish.
Okay.
And so I might go down to Mexico and learn Spanish. I might ask if I can do that. So we'll see. Whatever the diocese, at that point, all that stuff is out of my hands. I just make recommendations, and then they'll do what they want. And
so Italian, you're like, okay, I've got that now. Yeah. Let's move on to Spanish, huh?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, a lot more people speak Spanish here than Italian, unfortunately. So I have to learn another language. But
so what? No chance you're going to come back to St. Faustina?
I mean, there could be. You never know. It's yeah. I mean, it's usually once you've been there for a summer, it's unlikely you'll come back. But you never know. It's happened before, so it could happen again.
So right now, I guess you're starting to look back at your time here. What would you remember the most about being here at St. Faustina?
A few things. I mean, I just love the sense of identity and mission that's here at St. Faustina. From a big perspective, or big picture perspective, I think St. Faustina has a very good sense of identity of being a parish of mercy, one that really shows mercy to others. And I think that's a very important thing that we need to do in this world, and what Jesus asks us to do. So I'll definitely remember that sense of family and mission. And along those lines, I mean, I think I'll see like just the young, vibrant joy that you feel at St. Faustina. Do
you think it's because it's a young parish, or do you think it's?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors there. It could be, I think maybe less so just because it's a young parish. I mean, I think you got really good priests here. I think you got Father David Michael, Father Dat, who have a lot of energy, who bring a lot of joy, who really rally the troops here and do that. And then you just got great people. I mean, it's just the Lord has really brought a lot of great people together here, and a lot of great people passionate about serving the church and serving our Lord, and a lot of young families. And it's sometimes you don't always see that in parishes. So that's what I'll remember. And then the last thing I'll say is I'll just remember the friendships. Like I've definitely made lifelong friends here. That's been really, really amazing for me.
How challenging has it been being at St. Faustina during this whole coronavirus thing?
It has been pretty challenging. I told my parents last summer when I was at Christ the Redeemer in Cyprus, one of my favorite things to do is after Mass, you just sit out there and you get to see like 1,000 people leave the church, and just talk to them and shake hands, hug them, ask them how they're doing. You just talk to so many people. But now, you can't have that experience. And, so it was challenging at the beginning. It was challenging. I never expected, I've been looking forward to preaching my whole life, but I never expected everyone to be wearing a mask when I was preaching. I'd say a joke, and I didn't know if people were laughing, they're smiling, if they got it. It's just, it looks like a dead face.
And a lot of us are watching online as well.
Exactly. So you have these people online, so you never know how they're reacting to what you're saying. And so it was kind of difficult and finding, okay, what do I do? When I was in the summers, I'd spend my whole day at the church, and I'd just walk around to all the different activities going on, pop in, see how they're doing, check in on them, talk to people. And that's a whole new game. I mean, I
drop in on, the
Zoom,
youth.
Zoom bomb now is what I have to do. But yeah, I would drop in on the youth groups at the parishes. Last summer I even like going to like the senior citizens game days, and playing like cribbage or whatever it was with them and just having fun. I mean, that's the fun part about being a seminarian this summer. You just get to have a lot of different experiences. So it was definitely difficult, definitely tough, but you do see a lot more in challenging times. People rise up in their generosity, and that's what I've seen here. I mean, people give a lot of time just to make sure that we have Mass on Sunday. People really have been faithful to vlogging on, and the numbers that you see of people watching live stream has been pretty amazing to see and very inspiring.
And we've got people from all over the world attending as well.
I know. I heard we got South Africans tuning in. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy.
So what do you want the parishioners of St. Faustina to remember about your time here?
Oh, that's a good question. I hope people just remember me as being someone joyful, excited about being a priest, and excited about loving the people. If I can inspire people to just live their life radically for Jesus, that's what I think we need a lot, is people to be willing to just do radical things, and how much joy can be found in that. It may seem difficult, maybe tough at the beginning, as it was for me. It was tough and difficult, but there's just a lot of joy and fulfillment and meaning that can be brought when we follow the Lord and His invitation. So I hope I can be an example of that.
Would that be your message to the parishioners that you haven't been able to connect with or speak with?
I think so. Yeah, it would be just just get to know our Lord in such a way that you're willing to do anything for Him, and that the more we get to know the Lord, the more time we spend with the Lord, the more ready we're able to say yes to whatever He calls us to do, and that there's joy and fulfillment in that, and that's really where meaning comes, is when we follow what the Lord says, and I hope to be an example of that for them.
So if there are any young men or young women who are considering entering religious life, what kind of advice do you have for them?
Get to know Jesus. It's simple, but spend time with Him. That's got to be your first thing. He's got to be your friend. He's got to be your best friend. He's got to be who you lean on, who you go to. And so my first advice, get to know Jesus. Second is God has a plan for you. He's known you when you were in your mother's womb, and He knows what He wants for you, and He's inviting you to do something. So ask Him, involve Him in that question. And then take a leap of faith. You might think this is what God's calling me to do it. And then if it's not, the Lord will tell you, and He'll guide you in the right way. And He's going to honor and bless you for your generosity to respond to where you felt He was leading you. And so don't get caught in the whirlwind of discernment and only in your head. Make conscious and concrete steps towards where you think the Lord's leading you. And that's really where the Lord's will is often manifested, is when we actually start taking steps and actions towards what we think He's calling us to do.
Deacon Joseph White, thank you so much. Just remember that even though, you were only here for a few months, and a lot of us have seen you only through the screen, that you're still part of the St. Faustina Catholic Church family, and you're always welcome back here.
Y'all will always be in my heart, and I really appreciated my summer here.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Rudy.